selling illegal cigarettes and fake lottery tickets, and then moving on to become the world's most nefarious drug lord ever, Pablo Escobar's story is a captivating one, which is why it's no surprise that Netflix decided to adapt it to the big screen. And while director Jose Badia's artistic flair and brilliant camera work are to be admired, it seems like Netflix may have glossed over a fact or two. What was El Padrino really like? Find out as we talk about 10 things Netflix is hiding about Pablo Escobar. Number 1. Glossing over Pablo's brutality. Netflix did a commendable job of establishing Escobar as the undisputed drug lord. Fans got to see firsthand the man who laid out the foundation for narco-terrorism. And while it's quite obvious that Pablo would have had to get his hands seriously dirty to get to where he did, Netflix may have left out a detail or two. El Padrino had no qualms about drilling into his enemy's kneecaps, quite literally, which might come as a shock to some of you who've only seen Pablo as the man giving out orders on the show and nothing more. In reality, Escobar was right in the thick of it, sewing cash into mules and later killing them, not to mention that he killed every single architect who built any of his properties. Number 2. Lakikas' brutality. In the show, we saw Lakika play the right-hand man to Escobar, helping him pull off the Avianca flight bombing and even arranging his escape from La Catedral. While these are serious crimes, Lakika's real-life activities make the one on the show look like child's play. Born to a mother who worked as an evangelist and a father who was a police officer, Lakika grew up to wage war against the officers in blue under Escobar's wing, killing almost 600 cops in total. All in all, Lakika was no errand boy. He got his hands plenty dirty by skinning his victims alive, something that Netflix chose not to include in the show. Number 3. Lakika's role in the escape from La Catedral. And while we're on the topic, Lakika was not the one to help Escobar escape La Catedral in the July of 1992. He couldn't be because Lakika was hundreds of miles away serving time in America as he had been arrested the year before for using a payphone in Queens. Initially, he was tried for holding a fake passport. His punishment for his more heinous crimes came later. Number 4. A star-studded match in his backyard. If there's anything El Padrino loved more than drugs and money, it's football. He was especially into Deportivo Independiente Medellin, all the while running another hometown football club called Atlético Nacional. It's these very clubs that gave Colombia some of its biggest names in football, like Oscar Paella, Chico Sierra, and René Higuita. So it's no surprise that when Escobar was building his 5-star prison, he had construction workers install a football pitch in the middle of the complex. But that's not the wild part. In the show, you may have seen Escobar playing with his bodyguards on the field, but that's not the case. In reality, the drug lord paid out the entire Colombian national squad to come and play with him. If you're having a hard time believing us, you'll certainly believe Oscar Paella, who's attested to the fine couches and TVs at Escobar's place, right along with Diego Maradona, the greatest footballer ever to walk the planet. Number 5. Horacio Carrero's true identity. Colonel Horacio Carrero is one of the few characters on the show who was not tempted by the dark side. Driven by his raging desire to put Escobar behind bars, Colonel Horacio is a total badass, leading the Bloque de Bosqueda with some successful raids under his belt, like the Copacabana farm raid, the Tulo farm raid, and the Macada drug lab raid. El Patron had all the reason to be afraid of him. After all, not many can boast about killing Pablo's right-hand man, Gustavo Guevara. As cool as you can find Colonel Horacio, the cold-hearted truth is that there is no Colonel Horacio. Netflix completely made him up, perhaps framing his personality on a man known as General Hugo Martinez, as most critics believe. In real life, Martinez led the search block from the moment it was formed, unlike on the show where he took over after Escobar put a bullet in Horacio. Number 6. Valerie Vegas' true identity. Horacio is not the only character Netflix decided to make their own for the sake of drama. But don't worry, Valerie Vegas is not a made-up person, but one based on Virginia Viejo, a Colombian journalist and political asylee in the United States. While Valeria was killed off on the show, fate has been much kinder to her in real life. She's not with the love of her life in the afterlife, as Netflix would like you to believe. Instead, she's residing in Miami at the moment and has actually written a book, Loving Pablo, Hating Escobar, where she details her experiences. Number 7. They got Carlos Later all wrong. If your only introduction to Carlos Later is from the show, then you probably think he's a knucklehead who didn't have a place in Escobar's criminal ring, and you wouldn't be wrong. That's the story Netflix decided to sell, after all. But in real life, Carlos Later is a criminal mastermind second only to Escobar himself. He was the son of Klaus Wilhelm Later, who after his parents' divorce, moved to America. There, Carlos eventually landed in prison and met George Jung, his future partner in crime. These two put their heads together and came up with a plan to transport drugs to the United States using small aircraft. Later was already doing business before he crossed paths with Escobar. In the end, he became wealthy enough to pay off Colombia's external debt twice. Compared to his real-life persona, his Netflix persona seems almost like a mockery of Later's great genius. Number 8. The Secrets of La Catedral. Netflix did a good job of showing Escobar's 5-star prison. However, they missed out on the closet filled with vibrators, sex toys, negligés, and all the sexy lace you can think of. Turns out that Escobar's criminal activities made him a hit with the ladies. There were letters from mothers offering their daughters up to the Godfather. What's interesting is that Pablo decided to store away all these souvenirs neatly in the closet. A personal trophy case, if you may. Number 9. M19's actual nature. Later is not the only person Netflix got wrong. The network also dramatically misrepresented the true nature of M19, which was in fact the largest guerrilla group in Colombia. They were left-wing nationalists, revolutionary socialists, with theories inspired by Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara. The M19s were anything but the naive idealists that the streaming service made them out to be. What's more, Ivan Moreno Ospina was an experienced guerrilla leader, unlike what Ivan Torres from the show would have you believe. Number 10. Escobar's suicide. Saving the best one for last. Many believe that Pablo died after being shot by DEA agents, as we saw on the show itself. But that may not be entirely true. There's a high chance that the king of cocaine might just have killed himself. Although suicide and the biggest narco-terrorist are two words that hardly fit together, it is what the king's son, Juan Pablo, believes to be true. Why does his word carry weight? Well, Juan was the last person that Escobar talked to before he died. But why does El Padron's own blood think he died by suicide? Well, for starters, Escobar was not a fan of telephones. He always thought the DEA or the CIA was listening in on him, and so he ordered his son to stay away from the death. But guess how Escobar talked to his son? Not to mention that his phone call came around the time when the king's family had been turned from German, forcing them to seek lodging in a Colombian hotel owned by the army. In other words, Pablo's family would never be safe. That fateful day, Pablo called the hotel 7 times, knowing full well the lines were tapped. Only when the shooting started did he cut the call, and in the mayhem of flying bullets, 1 or 2 hit Escobar, killing him on the spot. At least that's what you think would be the case. When they discovered the body, authorities found a bullet wound near his right ear, which, if you don't know, is exactly the way he taught his son Juan to kill himself should he ever get caught. And let's not forget a key clue. Pablo died a day after his birthday. If we didn't know any better, we'd say he was enjoying his last supper. And that's all we have today, folks. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit the bell icons for more videos like these. Until next time, ciao!